This is part 2 of our 2-part series. I'll catch you up with a quick summary of part 1 in just a moment, though if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend starting there for the full experience. Link in the pinned comment and description. Previously in the story, Dominic, a vampire king who ruled for 3 centuries, fell in love with a human woman named Sarah. But he kept their love hidden, maintaining a cold public persona to appear strong. When Sarah's brother Thomas questioned one of Dominic's decisions in council, it widened the rift between them. Then, false evidence arrived, framing Thomas as a traitor conspiring with vampire hunters. Afraid of appearing weak, Dominic executed Thomas without a trial, ignoring Sarah's desperate pleas that her brother was innocent. The trauma triggered early labor. Their daughter Elena was born too early, took 3 breaths, and died in Sarah's arms. Devastated, Sarah told Dominic she would never forgive him, and he banished her from the castle. 5 years later, Dominic's advisor, Lord Henry, confessed on his deathbed that he had framed Thomas. Every piece of evidence was fabricated. Thomas was innocent. Dominic's investigation confirmed it all. Thomas had been teaching orphans to read at a hospital the day he was supposedly meeting with hunters. Dominic had murdered an innocent man and destroyed his family because he cared more about his pride than the truth. Broken by guilt, Dominic went to Sarah's village. She told him he was 5 years too late, that his apology meant nothing. But when he vowed to stay and prove he could change, she didn't tell him to leave. And now, the redemption begins. Over the next 2 weeks, Dominic does something unprecedented in 3 centuries of rule. He returns to the capital and calls an emergency council session. Every noble, every advisor, every person of importance in the kingdom is summoned. When they're assembled, confused and curious about why the king who's barely left his study in weeks has suddenly called them together, Dominic stands before them and does the unthinkable. He tells the truth. 5 years ago, he says, his voice carrying through the great hall, I executed a man named Thomas Hartwell for treason and conspiracy. I did so based on evidence presented to me by my trusted advisor, Lord Henry. I did so without a trial, without a proper investigation, without allowing the accused to defend himself. The council shifts uncomfortably. They remember. They approved. Thomas Hartwell was innocent. The hall erupts, shouts of disbelief, demands for explanation. Dominic lets them rage for a moment, then raises his hand for silence. Every piece of evidence against him was fabricated by Lord Henry, who confessed on his deathbed. Thomas Hartwell was at a children's hospital teaching orphans to read the day he was accused of meeting with vampire hunters. He had dozens of witnesses. He had alibis for every charge. The evidence of his innocence was overwhelming and readily available. Dominic's voice breaks, but he pushes through. I did not investigate because I was afraid of appearing weak, because I valued the council's opinion of my strength over the truth, because I dismissed the pleas of his sister, my lover, the mother of my child, as hysteria. I executed an innocent man to prove a point about my authority. The hall is dead silent now. The trauma of witnessing her brother's execution caused Thomas's sister to go into early labor. Our daughter was born 6 months into pregnancy. She lived for 3 breaths and died in her mother's arms. Dominic looks around the hall, meeting eyes, letting them see his pain. I destroyed 2 innocent lives and shattered a 3rd because I was more concerned with my image than with justice. I was more worried about your whispers that I'd gone soft than about whether I was making the right decision. I let pride and fear guide me instead of truth and mercy. He pauses, then continues. I am not fit to be your king. Not because I made a mistake. Kings make mistakes. But because I made a choice. I chose pride over truth. I chose appearance over substance. I chose power over love. And I would make that choice again, because that is who I am. That is who 3 centuries of unchecked authority has made me. Dominic removes his crown and sets it on the throne. I hereby abdicate my position as Vampire King. The council will elect a new ruler, someone who values truth over pride, someone who listens to dissenting voices instead of silencing them, someone who is strong enough to admit when they're wrong. Lord Pembroke stands, his face pale. Your Majesty, this is unprecedented. You can't simply, I can, and I am. But before I leave this hall for the last time as your king, I will take 3 actions to honor the man I murdered. Dominic gestures, and servants bring forward documents he's already prepared. First, Thomas Hartwell is posthumously awarded the kingdom's highest civilian honor for his work teaching orphaned children. His name will be recorded in the Hall of Heroes. Second, I am commissioning a monument to be built in the Capitol Square. It will be a statue of Thomas reading to children with this inscription: Thomas Hartwell, innocent man, murdered by a king too proud to seek truth. May we learn from this injustice to value truth over pride, mercy over strength, and listening over assuming. Several council members gasp at the bluntness of the inscription. Good. Let them be uncomfortable. Third, I am establishing the Hartwell Foundation, funded with my personal wealth. It will provide education for orphaned and impoverished children across the kingdom, in Thomas's name and memory. It will also provide compensation to families of anyone wrongfully executed and fund independent investigations of all criminal cases involving the death penalty. Dominic looks around the hall one last time. I cannot undo what I did, but I can ensure it never happens again. I can make sure Thomas Hartwell's death means something. I can make sure no other king values his pride over truth the way I did. He picks up the crown one last time, feeling its weight. Regent Marcus has legitimate claim and the respect of the nobility. I recommend him as my successor, but the choice is yours. Vote wisely. Choose someone better than I was. He sets the crown down and walks out of the hall. Behind him, chaos erupts. But Dominic doesn't look back. He's done being king. The council elects Regent Marcus, just as Dominic recommended. Marcus is a distant cousin with a legitimate claim, known for his careful deliberation and willingness to listen to advisors. Dominic signs over his wealth, keeping only enough to live modestly, and watches as crews begin construction on Thomas's monument. The statue takes shape over weeks. Thomas seated on a bench, a child on either side, a book open in his lap. His face is kind, patient, exactly as the sculptor's sketches showed. exactly as the children who knew him described. Dominic visits the construction site daily, watching the monument rise. He's there when they carve the inscription, watches as they chisel each letter. Thomas Hartwell, innocent man, murdered by a king too proud to seek truth. May we learn from this injustice to value truth over pride, mercy over strength, and listening over assuming. Some nobles complain that it's too harsh, too critical of the former king. Marcus tells them that's exactly the point. The day the monument is unveiled, hundreds gather. Not just nobility, common people, villagers, and orphans. Children Thomas taught, now grown. Parents whose children learned to read because of him. People who never met him but understand what his death represents. Dominic stands at the back of the crowd, anonymous in simple clothing, and watches as a little girl, Anna, now 13, reads the inscription aloud with tears streaming down her face. "He taught me to read," she says to the crowd. "He was patient and kind, and he made me believe I was smart enough to learn. And he died for nothing, for a king's pride." She places flowers at the base of the statue. Others follow. Soon the monument is covered in flowers, letters, small tokens of remembrance. Dominic watches it all and feels the weight of what he's done settle into his bones. This is his legacy. Not 3 centuries of rule, not the kingdom's prosperity or security. This, a monument to his failure, a reminder of his greatest sin. As it should be. With nothing but a small bag and the clothes on his back, Dominic returns to Sarah's village. He doesn't announce himself, doesn't make a scene. He simply shows up at the village square and asks if anyone needs help with labor. The villagers are deeply suspicious at first. A vampire? The former king? Here? But Dominic works. He repairs old Widow Chen's roof when a storm damages it, working through the night because sunlight still burns. He helps with the harvest, using his supernatural strength to do the work of 10 men. He builds a new fence for the shepherd, who's too old to do it himself. He doesn't speak about his past unless directly asked. When people recognize him, and some do, he's honest. "Yes, I was king. I abdicated because I executed an innocent man and destroyed my family through pride and fear. I'm here to learn how to be better." Word spreads quickly. The former vampire king is in their village, doing manual labor, living in a tiny cottage on the edge of town. Some people are afraid, some are angry, but most are just curious. They watch him work, watch him ask for guidance instead of giving orders. Watch him accept correction from the blacksmith when he does something wrong. Watch him listen, really listen when people talk. After a month, the baker's oven breaks beyond her ability to fix. She needs a new one, but can't afford it. Dominic builds her one, spending 3 days getting the temperature regulation perfect. He doesn't ask for payment. When the winter comes early and threatens the late harvest, Dominic works through freezing nights to bring in crops for families who would have lost everything. When a child falls through ice into the river, Dominic is the one who jumps in. Vampire cold resistance saving both of them from hypothermia. Slowly, gradually, the village stops seeing him as the former king. They start seeing him as Dominic, the quiet man who lives on the edge of town and helps anyone who needs it. Sarah watches all of this from a distance. She sees him building the new schoolhouse, larger, better equipped, with proper heating and more space for books. He works on it during every spare moment, and when it's finished, he doesn't attend the opening ceremony, just leaves a note. For the children, may they always have a place to learn. She sees him at village meetings, sitting in the back, listening to everyone speak before offering any opinion. And when he does speak, it's with humility. I could be wrong, but have we considered? And that's a good point, I hadn't thought of that. She sees him helping old Thomas's friends from the orphanage, now grown, some with children of their own. He helps them find work, helps repair their homes, helps with childcare so the parents can work. He does it quietly, without seeking recognition. And she sees him every Sunday morning, walking to the small grove at the edge of the village where she buried Elena's ashes. He brings flowers, sits there for hours. Sometimes she sees his shoulders shake with sobs. He never knows she watches. 8 months pass before Sarah finally approaches him. It's evening. He's sitting outside his cottage, small, simple, nothing like the castle he left behind. He's reading by lamplight, a book on early childhood education. She walks up, and he looks up, startled, sets the book aside immediately, stands. Sarah. Why are you still here? She asks. It's the first words she's spoken to him since he returned. He looks at her, and there's no calculation in his eyes, no manipulation, just bone-deep sorrow and fragile hope. Because I need to understand what I destroyed, and I need to prove to you, to myself, to Thomas's memory, that I'm capable of change, that I can become someone who would never make that mistake again. You can't undo what you did, she says, her voice still hard, but with less edge than before. I know, he says quietly, but I can become someone who would never do it again. Someone who listens, really listens, instead of assuming. Someone who values truth over pride. Someone who sees questioning as help rather than disrespect. I can't bring back Thomas or Elena, but I can honor them by being better. She studies him for a long moment. You gave up your kingdom, your power. Marcus could see you as a threat. I don't care about the kingdom anymore, he says simply. I care about becoming someone worthy of the love I destroyed. I care about proving that Thomas was wrong about one thing. I'm not cold all the way through. I was just too afraid to show warmth because I thought it made me weak. And that fear made me the monster he worried I was. Something in her expression shifts slightly. Not forgiveness, but perhaps less absolute rejection. Thomas wasn't wrong about you being cold, she says. He was wrong about you being incapable of change. Maybe. She doesn't say more. She walks away. But she doesn't tell him to leave. And 3 days later, she leaves a book on his doorstep, a collection of teaching methods for struggling readers. No note, but it's a message. I see what you're trying to do. Months pass. The seasons turn. Dominic continues his work in the village, and Sarah slowly, carefully, begins to let him into her life again. Not as her lover. Not yet. as someone earning trust back, one honest conversation at a time. Their first real conversation happens in the village square, both there for a meeting about expanding the school. Sarah presents her ideas, and when she's finished, Dominic raises his hand. "May I ask a question about the reading curriculum?" She nods, wary. "You mentioned using phonics for beginning readers. I've been reading about whole language approaches. Do you think there's value in combining both methods, or does that confuse children?" It's genuine curiosity, a real question. No assertion of his own knowledge, just asking to learn. Sarah blinks, surprised, then explains her reasoning. Dominic listens, takes notes, asks follow-up questions, thanks her for the explanation. It's a small thing, but it's the first time they've had a conversation where he approached her as a student, not an authority. After the meeting, as they're both leaving, she says quietly, "That was a good question about the reading methods. I'm trying to understand. I waitron if I can, but only if you want me to." She looks at him for a long moment. Then, "We need volunteers for the afternoon reading program. Children who are behind their peers. It requires patience and individual attention. I'd like to help with that, if you think it's appropriate. Be at the school tomorrow at 3. We'll see." He shows up at 2:30, nervous as he hasn't been in centuries. Sarah assigns him to work with Marcus, an 8-year-old boy who's struggling with letter recognition. Dominic sits with the child, patient and encouraging, using techniques he's learned from the books he's been reading. When Marcus finally gets through a full sentence, sounding out each word carefully, Dominic's face lights up with genuine pride. "You did it! Marcus, that was perfect!" Sarah watches from across the room and sees something that makes her breath catch. This is what Thomas would have looked like. This joy in a child's success. This patience. This kindness. Dominic is becoming the kind of man Thomas was. Over the following weeks, Dominic becomes a regular at the afternoon program. The children love him. He's patient, encouraging, never condescending. He celebrates their smallest victories and sits with them through their frustrations. One day, little Anna, who's now 14 and helps teach the younger children, approaches him. "Mr. Dominic, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "You're the king who killed Teacher Thomas, aren't you?" The room goes silent. Sarah freezes at her desk. Dominic could deny it, could deflect, could ask her to discuss it privately. Instead, he kneels so he's at eye level with her. "Yes," he says quietly. "I am. Thomas Hartwell was innocent, and I executed him anyway because I was too proud to investigate properly. I destroyed a good man because I cared more about appearing strong than about finding the truth." Anna's eyes fill with tears. "He was the best teacher I ever had. He taught me to read my mother's name on her grave." "I know. I found the letter you wrote him. I'm sorry I took him from you. I'm sorry I took him from all the children he could have taught, all the lives he could have touched. What I did was unforgivable." Then why are you here?
Because I'm trying to become someone who would never make that mistake again. I can't bring back Teacher Thomas, but I can honor him by trying to be more like him. Patient, kind, dedicated to helping children learn. Dominic's voice breaks. I know I can never be as good as he was, but I want to try. Anna is quiet for a moment. Then she says, Teacher Thomas always said everyone deserves a second chance, even people who make really bad mistakes. That's very generous. I'm still mad at you, she says, for killing him, for taking him away from us. You should be. I'm mad at myself. But Teacher Sarah says you've been helping build the new school, and you're good with the kids who struggle. Marcus really likes you. I'm trying. Anna nods slowly. Okay. You can keep helping. But you have to promise to be as good to these kids as Teacher Thomas was to me. I promise. I'll try my best. That's all he ever asked of us, too. Sarah watches this exchange with tears in her eyes. Because Anna is right. Thomas would have given Dominic a second chance, would have believed in redemption, would have seen the possibility of change. That night, when the school closes, Sarah waits for Dominic outside. That was brave, she says. What you told Anna. It was honest. She deserved honesty. You could have asked to speak with her privately, saved yourself the embarrassment. I'm not trying to save myself from anything anymore, Dominic says. I'm trying to be better. Part of that is being honest about what I did, no matter who's listening. Sarah nods slowly. Walk with me? It's the first time she's initiated contact. Dominic's heart stutters. I'd like that. They walk through the village as the sun sets, not speaking at first, just walking side by side, careful not to touch. Finally, Sarah says, I see what you're doing, the work you're putting in, the way you've changed. I'm trying. I know, and I see it, she pauses. But I need you to understand something. What you did, it's not something I can just forgive because you've changed. Thomas is still dead. Elena is still dead. Those things don't go away because you're better now. I know. And I need to know, if we try this again, if I let you back into my life, that you won't fall back into old patterns. That when things get hard, when you feel pressured or scared, you won't become that cold king again. Dominic stops walking, turns to face her. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes. I can't promise I'll always get it right. But I can promise that I will never, ever dismiss your voice again. I will never value my pride over truth. I will never make a decision without considering all perspectives, especially yours. Until I start to slip, if you see me falling back into old patterns, I need you to call me on it, immediately. I need you to be the voice that keeps me honest. Sarah searches his face for a long moment. This isn't going to be easy, she says. There's going to be days when I look at you and only see the man who killed my brother. Days when I can't stand to be in the same room as you. Days when the grief is too much and I need space. I understand. And you have to be okay with that. You have to understand that I get to feel what I feel,
and you don't get to ask me to move past it faster.
I would never ask that.
Okay. She takes a shaky breath. Then we can try. Slowly, carefully, with a lot of honesty and a lot of patience. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's a door opening, just a crack. Thank you, Dominic says, his voice thick with emotion.
Thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve.
You're right. You don't deserve it. But Thomas believed in second chances, and Elena deserved to have a father who learned from his mistakes. Her eyes fill with tears. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for them.
That's fair.
That's more than fair. They stand there in the growing darkness, and Dominic wants desperately to reach for her, to hold her, to close the distance between them. But he doesn't. He waits. And after a moment, Sarah reaches out and takes his hand. It's tentative, fragile, but it's something. They walk back to the village square hand in hand, and it's the most precious thing Dominic has held in 5 years. Over the following months, they rebuild, slowly, carefully. Sarah sets conditions, and Dominic follows them religiously. He never dismisses anyone's concerns, no matter how small. When the baker worries about competition from a new shop, Dominic listens and helps her develop a specialty product line instead of telling her she's overreacting. He proves daily that he values people over pride. When a villager criticizes his fence-building technique and shows him a better method, Dominic thanks him and implements the changes immediately. He attends a support group Sarah runs for people who've lost family to violence and injustice. He listens to their stories without centering his own pain. When a woman talks about her husband being executed for a crime he didn't commit, Dominic doesn't make it about himself. He simply listens. Afterward, he privately asks what he can do to help her family. He uses what remains of his connections to get her husband's name cleared posthumously, to secure compensation for the family, to ensure the real criminal is found. He does it quietly, without seeking credit. When conflicts arise, and they do, Dominic handles them differently than he ever did as king. A dispute erupts between neighbors about a property line. The old Dominic would have made a ruling and expected obedience. The new Dominic asks questions, listens to both sides, helps them find a compromise they can both live with. When a traveling merchant tries to cheat villagers with rigged scales, the old Dominic would have had him arrested and punished. The new Dominic talks to the man, discovers he's desperate because his family is starving, and helps him find honest work instead. Sarah watches all of this. She sees him becoming someone who uses power to serve rather than dominate. Someone who listens before acting. Someone who admits when he's wrong. In their 5th month of carefully rebuilding, they have their first real fight. It happens after a village meeting where Dominic suggests a change to the school's funding structure. It's a good suggestion, well-reasoned. But he presents it with a little too much certainty, a little too much expectation that people will agree. Afterward, Sarah pulls him aside. "That was too much," she says.
What do you mean?
"The way you presented your idea. You didn't ask for input. You didn't invite discussion. You just asserted. like you expected everyone to fall in line. Dominic feels defensive.
I thought it was a good idea. I was just trying to empathy.
I know, but the way you did it, it felt like the old you, the king, who made pronouncements and expected obedience. He opens his mouth to argue, then stops, because she's right. He did feel a flash of his old authority when he was speaking, did expect people to agree because his reasoning was sound. You're right, he says quietly. I'm sorry, I slipped. I know you did. And you need to understand, that's going to scare me. Every time you slip, even a little, I'm going to remember who you were. I'm going to worry that this change isn't real. It is real. Old habits. 3 centuries of ruling a certain way. It doesn't all disappear overnight. I know, but you have to actively fight it, every time. Because I need to know that you won't slide back into being that person. They talk for hours that night, working through it. Dominic acknowledges his mistake, commits to being more aware. Sarah explains her fears, her triggers, her needs. It's hard, painful, but they get through it. And the next morning, Dominic goes to the village meeting and says, Yesterday, I made a suggestion about school funding in a way that was too assertive. I apologize. Let me rephrase. I've been thinking about our funding structure, and I have an idea I'd like to discuss with everyone. But I'm genuinely asking for input. I could be completely wrong about this. The village appreciates it. Sarah squeezes his hand under the table. They're learning each other again. Learning how to be together in a way that's healthy and honest and real. One evening, a year after Dominic first returned to the village, Sarah takes him to the small grove where she buried Elena's ashes. 2 simple markers stand side by side. Beloved daughter, gone too soon. Thomas Hartwell, beloved brother, taken unjustly. This is where I come when I need to feel close to them, Sarah says, her voice steady but heavy with old grief. Thomas is buried in the capital with his monument, but I had this marker made so I can visit them together. Dominic kneels at the graves and weeps, not quietly. He breaks completely, sobbing in a way he hasn't allowed himself to do since the night Henry died. Sarah lets him, doesn't comfort him, doesn't tell him it's okay. Just sits beside him and lets him feel the full weight of what he destroyed. They sit there for hours as the sun sets and the stars come out. Finally, when his sobs have quieted to shaking breaths, Sarah speaks. Have you learned anything? Dominic looks up at her, face wet with tears, eyes red. I learned that I valued being right more than I valued truth. I valued my authority more than I valued the people I claimed to protect. I was so afraid of appearing weak that I became the monster I was afraid people would see. His voice breaks. I destroyed everything that mattered because I couldn't bear the thought of being questioned. And I can never undo it. But I can make sure I never do it again. I can make sure their deaths meant something by becoming better. Sarah nods slowly. Thomas died thinking he failed me. He died thinking I was with a man who would never love me the way I deserved. I need you to understand that. My brother's last thoughts were that he failed to protect his sister from someone cold and cruel. He didn't fail you, Dominic says, his voice breaking. He was right. I was cold and cruel. You deserved better than what I gave you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I proved him right. At least you finally understand, she says. They sit in silence for a while longer. Then Sarah says, "Tell me about Elena. Tell me what you remember." "She had your eyes," Dominic says. "Dark, but with these flecks of amber. And your delicate features. She had my hair, dark and thick. She was so tiny, Sarah. So perfect. And when she took those 3 breaths, I thought maybe she'd fight. Maybe she'd be strong enough. But she wasn't, because I took that chance away from her." Sarah starts crying, and Dominic instinctively reaches for her. She lets him pull her close, and they hold each other, grieving together for the first time. "I named her before she died," Sarah whispers. "Elena Marie Hartwell. After my mother and Thomas's middle name. I wanted her to carry both their names." "It's perfect." "I used to imagine what she'd be like, what color her eyes would turn, whether she'd be good at reading like Thomas or good at building things, whether she'd be stubborn like me or thoughtful like you could be. She would have been extraordinary, because you would have raised her to be kind and strong and brave." They sit at the graves until dawn, talking about Elena, about Thomas, about the life that should have been. Dominic listens to Sarah's grief without trying to fix it or minimize it, just holds her and lets her feel everything she needs to feel. When the sun starts to rise, Sarah says quietly, "You need to go, before the light gets too strong." "I know." But before he stands, she touches his face and says something she hasn't said in 6 years. "I love you. I loved you then, and I still love you now, even though part of me wishes I didn't. But I need you to understand, love isn't enough. It wasn't enough then, and it's not enough now. I need you to be better, every day, for the rest of our lives." "I will be," Dominic promises. "Every day. I swear it." "Okay." She helps him to his feet. "Then let's try." The trust rebuilds slowly over the following year. They take walks together through the village and countryside. They work together at the school, Sarah teaching reading, Dominic teaching history and math. They talk about everything. They talk about Thomas. Sarah tells stories from their childhood. How Thomas used to read to her when she couldn't sleep. How he'd defend her from bullies. How he'd make her laugh when she was sad. Dominic listens and grieves for the man he never got to know, the brother he should have had. They talk about Elena. They imagine what she would have been like at 1 year old, at 5, at 10. They allow themselves to picture the life she should have had. It hurts, but it also helps. Keeping her memory alive keeps her real. They talk about the future, what they want, what they're afraid of, what they hope for. On the anniversary of Thomas's execution, Dominic doesn't go to Sera. Instead, he goes to the Capitol, to Thomas's monument, and sits there all day. People come and go, leaving flowers, reading the inscription. Dominic sits at the base of the statue and tells Thomas everything he wishes he could have said when he was alive. "I'm sorry I never gave you a chance. I'm sorry I saw your concern for Seta as disrespect instead of love. I'm sorry I was too proud to hear you. You were right about me. I was cold. I was cruel. I did let my pride matter more than truth." He stays until dark, and when he returns to the village, Seta is waiting on his cottage doorstep. "I went to the monument," he tells her. "I know. I asked someone to watch and tell me." "I needed to talk to him, to tell him I'm sorry.
to tell him I'm trying to be better. Seta stands, takes his hand. Come inside. I made dinner. It's a small thing, making him dinner. But it means something. It means she's choosing to share her space with him, choosing to take care of him, choosing to build a life together. They eat quietly, and afterwards Seta says, I cried on Thomas's marker here today. And you know what I realized? What? That I've been so focused on the pain of losing him that I forgot to celebrate what he was. He was kind. He was patient. He loved teaching. He believed in second chances. She touches Dominic's face. And he would want me to be happy. He'd want me to believe that people can change. He'd want me to give you the chance he never got, to see you become better. Dominic's eyes fill with tears. So I'm choosing to believe in you, Seta says. I'm choosing to trust that the man you've become is real, that the change is permanent, that you'll keep choosing truth over pride, love over fear. I will. I promise. I know. That night, they kiss for the first time in 6 years. It's tentative, gentle, full of grief and hope intertwined. Tender in a way they never quite achieved before. Because now, they both understand how precious this is, how fragile, how easily it can be destroyed. Seta pulls him close, and he holds her like she's the most precious thing in existence. Because she is. They spend the rest of Seta's mortal life together, 32 years. They never formally marry. Seta says she doesn't need a ceremony to know what they have is real. We've already lost each other once. We don't need a contract to prove we choose each other now. But everyone in the village knows their partners, family. Their life together is full of simple, profound moments. Teaching side by side, watching children learn and grow. Marcus, the struggling reader Dominic first tutored, eventually becomes a teacher himself. At his first day in his own classroom, both Dominic and Seta attend. You taught me to love reading, Marcus tells them. Now I get to do the same for others. Every week, they visit Elena's and Thomas's graves together. They bring flowers, tell them about the children they taught, the lives they touched. The school has 60 students now, Sarah tells the markers. Can you believe it? Your legacy, Thomas. All those children learning because you believed in education. The evening Sarah tells him she's proud of who he's become. They're on the porch of the cottage he built for them, simple, cozy, with a garden and a porch swing. The sunset is spectacular. Thomas would be proud too, she says, of how you changed, of how you love me now, of the man you've become. Dominic weeps and she holds him. Thank you for giving me the chance to become him. A conflict in their 5th year together when Dominic briefly slips into old patterns during a village dispute. He makes a decision without consulting Sarah, assuming he knows best. She calls him on it immediately. That was the old you talking, she says, her voice hard. He wants to defend himself, but he stops, takes a breath, thinks. You're right. I'm sorry. I got caught up in problem solving and forgot to listen first. You can't do that. Not ever. because that's the path that leads back to who you were. They talk for hours. Dominic apologizes not just to Sarah, but to the people whose opinions he dismissed. He works with them to find a better solution. It's hard and humbling, but it reinforces the lesson. Listen first, always. Sarah forgives him, but she also reminds him. Change isn't a destination. It's a choice you make every single day. Reading to village children together on summer evenings, just like Thomas used to do. Dominic's voice is warm and animated now, so different from the cold king he was. One evening, a child asks him to read Thomas's favorite story. Sarah gets tears in her eyes as Dominic reads the same tale her brother read to her when she was small. Their quiet intimacy, holding hands while walking, her head on his shoulder during village gatherings, the way he brushes her hair before bed, the way she touches his face and says, "I love you," and means it, fully, without reservation. "I love you too," he always responds. "More than I thought possible. You gave me a second chance at being human, even though I'm not." The day they have a real, honest conversation about immortality and what comes after. Sarah is 50 now, showing signs of aging that make her even more beautiful to Dominic. They're sitting on their porch, watching the sunset, when she brings it up. "I need to tell you something," she says, "about my future." He waits, giving her space. "You're immortal. I'm human. You want us to be together, but that means you'll watch me age and die while you stay young forever." "I've thought about that," he says quietly. "There's magic, dangerous magic, but I've been researching it. I can become human. I can give up immortality to grow old with you. I want to." She shakes her head, and his heart sinks. "No, I don't want you to do that." "Why not?" Her eyes fill with tears. "Because I'm not going to become a vampire, Dominic. I'm going to live my human life, and when my time comes, I'm going to die. I want to die." "Sarah." "I want to reunite with our daughter," she says, her voice breaking. "And with Thomas. I believe there's something after this life, and they're waiting for me there. I believe I'll hold Elena again someday. I believe I'll tell Thomas that he was right to worry about me, but that in the end, you learned, you changed, and I need that. I need to know I'll see them again." Dominic feels his world tilt. He'd hoped, dreamed they could have forever together, that he could make up for the lost years. But she's asking for the opposite. She's asking him to love her, knowing he'll lose her. But this is her choice, her body, her life, her eternity. And after everything, after he stole her brother's life, dismissed her voice, took so much from her, he won't take this too. "That's your choice," he finally says, his voice raw with pain, but firm with conviction. "I won't ask you to give up seeing them again. I won't ask you to choose me over Elena or Thomas. They deserve to have you back more than I deserve to keep you." "But it means you'll lose me," she says, tears streaming down her face. "Again. You'll be alone again." He takes her hands gently. "Then I'll love you for however long I have you. 20 years, 30, 40 if we're blessed. I'll take every day I can get. I'll make every moment count. And when you go to them, I'll live with that. Because you deserve to see our daughter again. You deserve to tell Thomas that you're okay. You deserve peace. She starts crying harder, and he pulls her into his arms. I'm sorry, she whispers against his chest. I'm sorry I can't give you forever. Don't apologize for choosing our child, he says fiercely. Don't ever apologize for that. You're being the mother she never got to have in life. You're being the sister Thomas deserved. That's beautiful. That's love. And I won't ask you to give that up for me. They hold each other as the sun sets, and Dominic commits himself to making every remaining day count. They have 32 years together. Sarah continues teaching, and Dominic works alongside her, helping expand the school as the village grows. They talk about Thomas and Elena often, keeping their memories alive. They plant gardens near the grave markers, filling them with flowers that bloom year-round. Sarah ages gracefully. Her hair turns silver. Her face gains lines from years of laughter and teaching and living fully. Dominic stays frozen at mid-30s eternally, but he loves every new wrinkle, every sign that she's lived a full life. They don't have other children. Sarah admits she's afraid to try, afraid of the pain if something goes wrong. Dominic never pressures her. Their life is full in other ways, with students who become like children to them, with the community they've built, with the love they tend carefully every day. When Sarah is 68, her health begins to fail. Her heart is weakening, the doctors say. She has perhaps a year, maybe less. She's peaceful about it. Ready. I'm going to see them soon, she tells Dominic one evening, her eyes bright despite her frail body. Elena, Thomas, I'm going home. I know, he says, though it's killing him inside to watch her fade. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I became better. Tell them I loved you well. I will, she promises, squeezing his hand with what strength she has left. And Dominic, thank you. Thank you for these years. Thank you for changing. Thank you for proving that love can transform even the coldest hearts. Thomas would have been proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm only better because you gave me the chance to be. No, you're better because you chose to be. Every day. That was you. She dies on a spring morning 6 months later, windows open and birds singing outside. Dominic is holding her hand, telling her about the garden, about how the roses she planted are blooming early this year, about how Marcus just got engaged and wants Dominic to officiate, since Dominic is like a father to him. Her last words are, I see them. They're here. They're waiting. She smiles, her eyes focusing on something he can't see. Thomas says, he says you did good. He forgives you. And Elena? Oh, Dominic. She's beautiful. She's perfect. She says she can't wait to meet you. She says... Sarah takes one more breath, still smiling. Then she's gone, that smile still on her face. Dominic buries her between the two markers, adding a third. Sarah Hartwell, beloved teacher, sister, mother, partner. She chose love, always. He stays in the village, continuing the work they built together. He honors her memory by being the man she helped him become. He expands the school in her name. He creates a scholarship for children who've lost parents to violence or injustice. He lives quietly, humbly, using what power he still has to serve rather than rule. The village mourns with him. They loved Sarah, and they've come to respect Dominic. At her funeral, dozens speak about how she touched their lives, and several mention how Dominic changed for her, became better for her. I remember when he first came here, old Widow Chen says. I was afraid, thought a vampire, especially a former king, would be dangerous. But Sarah saw something in him worth saving. And he proved her right. He became the man she always believed he could be. Dominic weeps through the entire funeral, and the village lets him. They understand grief. They honor it. 10 years pass. Dominic continues his work, teaching at the school, helping the village, keeping Sarah's memory alive. He ages in other ways, not physically, but in wisdom, in depth, in understanding. He's learned to be alone without being lonely, to carry his grief without being consumed by it. But the kingdom hasn't forgotten him. In the capital, Regent Marcus grows increasingly paranoid. Dominic's abdication was unprecedented, and there are still nobles who speak fondly of the former king. Marcus hears reports of how the villagers speak of Dominic with love and respect. He hears rumors that some nobles think Dominic was a better king, that he showed true strength by admitting his mistakes and stepping down. Marcus sees a threat. What if Dominic wants his throne back? What if the people rally to him? What if this has all been a long game to make Marcus look bad in comparison? Fear and insecurity eat at Marcus. He makes the same kind of choice Dominic once made. A choice based on fear and pride rather than truth. He sends 3 assassins on a cold autumn night. They're professionals, armed with blessed silver stakes, one of the few ways to truly kill a vampire. They find Dominic in the garden he and Sarah planted together, tending the roses by moonlight. Dominic could run. He could fight with full force. He's still a vampire, still strong, still deadly when he needs to be. But when he sees the stakes, understands what's happening, he makes a different choice. He's lived long enough. He's done the work he needed to do. He's become someone Thomas and Elena could be proud of, someone Sarah loved. And Sarah is waiting. He fights enough to make it look real, to ensure the assassins don't get suspicious and report back that he went too willingly. But when the first stake pierces his heart, he doesn't fight the darkness that comes. When the second drives into his throat, he lets go. As his vision fades, as the darkness closes in, he sees something that makes him forget the pain entirely. Light. Warm, golden light, like the sunrise he hasn't seen in centuries. And in the light, 3 figures. Sarah, young and radiant, but with the wisdom and kindness in her eyes that came from the years they spent together. Beside her, a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Thomas, whole and at peace, no longer afraid or angry. And between them,
a little girl who looks about 5 years old, with Sarah's eyes and Dominic's dark hair. Elena, their daughter. No longer a newborn who barely drew breath, but a child who somehow grew in whatever place they've been. Sarah opens her arms, that familiar, warm smile on her face. "Welcome home," she says, and her voice is everything he remembers and more. Dominic feels himself smiling, genuinely, peacefully smiling, for the first time since he became a vampire 3 centuries ago. "I'm sorry I kept you waiting," he whispers, his voice already fading. "You're here now," Thomas says, and there's no anger in his voice, no bitterness, just peace and something that might be pride. "That's what matters. Sarah told us everything. You learned. You changed. You loved her well." Elena breaks free from Sarah's hand and runs forward. Dominic drops to his knees as she crashes into him, throwing her small arms around his neck. She's real and warm and laughing, and he's holding his daughter for the first time. Actually holding her. "Daddy," she says, and his heart breaks and heals all at once. "Mama told me all about you. She said you made mistakes, but you fixed them. She said you learned how to love." Sarah kneels beside them, wrapping her arms around both of them. Thomas places a hand on Dominic's shoulder, a gesture of acceptance, of brotherhood, of forgiveness. "You became a good man," Sarah tells him, her eyes shining. "You learned to listen. You learned to value truth over pride. You learned that real strength is admitting when you're wrong. And now we have forever, all of us, together." Dominic closes his eyes, surrounded by his family, complete at last, and lets go of the last threads tying him to the mortal world. The pain disappears. The guilt he carried for so long finally releases. There's only love now, only light, only home. In the village, they find his body in the morning, lying in the rose garden with a peaceful smile on his face. They bury him next to Sarah and place a simple marker. Dominic Knight. He learned to listen. He learned to love. He earned his peace. The village mourns him. The children he taught bring flowers, so many flowers that the graves are covered. The people he helped speak at his funeral about how he changed their lives, how he proved that even the coldest hearts can learn to love, how he showed them that redemption is possible. Marcus, one of his former students, speaks through tears. "He taught me to read when I thought I was too stupid to learn. He was patient when I struggled. He celebrated when I succeeded. He never gave up on me. And now I'm a teacher because of him. Because he showed me that everyone deserves a chance to grow." And in the capital, when news of his assassination reaches the nobles, there's an outcry. The new king's cruelty is exposed. People remember Dominic's monument to Thomas, his public admission of guilt, his humble abdication. They compare it to Marcus's paranoid violence. Dominic's final act, dying without fighting back, accepting his fate with grace, becomes the catalyst for Marcus's downfall. The council removes him from power within months. But Dominic doesn't know any of that. He doesn't need to, because in whatever lies beyond, a family reunited celebrates not the tragedy that tore them apart, but the love that brought them back together. The ending is not about erasing the pain. Thomas's death, Elena's death,
the years of suffering. None of that disappears. But it's transcended. It's transformed into something beautiful. A man who destroyed everything learned to rebuild. A woman who lost everything learned to forgive. A brother who died unjustly learned his sister found happiness. And a child who barely lived got to know her father's love. It's a story about how love, real, hard-won, transformative love, can heal even the deepest wounds, not by erasing them, but by honoring them, by learning from them, by becoming better because of them. And as Dominic holds his daughter and his partner and shakes hands with the brother-in-law he never got to know in life, he finally understands what Sarah tried to tell him all those years ago. Real strength isn't in never being wrong. It's in admitting when you are and doing the work to become better. Real love isn't in grand gestures or eternal promises. It's in showing up day after day and listening when it matters most. And real peace isn't